Hello. Welcome back. Glad to have your ass in chemistry class today. So, we're going to be covering a few topics, but we're going to do a build up to where we get to the vaccine, the VID vaccine. So, I'm preparing you guys to understand the foundation and the basics so then we could go from there so that when we get to the vaccine, you won't be so wild like I don't understand all of the science. So I'm going to break it down to you as best as I can, but just follow me, stick with me. And like I said, welcome back. Glad to have you here. So let's go ahead and let's break this on down like a pound. So today it's chemistry class, but we are calling it biochemistry class. Why? Because we are going to cover biology and chemistry pertaining to the immune system, vitamins, and the VID. This is biochemistry class series part 1. Pay attention because this is my first time actually doing it this method, and I'm going to try and highlight areas or specifications. I don't know why I'm tongue twisted today. Please forgive me. Okay, so the immune system. Wait a second. I gotta make sure that you guys can see this. And I don't think you guys can see this. So, okay, I'll try to fix that in the end. But the immune system. We've been through a couple of these topics before in chemistry class, but I'm going to touch on them again. So you guys is just going to be refocusing because you already should know this information or should have some kind of inkling of it. So the immune system fights off infections, protects our body against foreign invaders. Very, very important to the body. Very, very important. And I'm going to talk about some proteins, which are called antibodies specifically, because this is going to cover up to when we get to the VID or the vaccine. So an antigen, a virus, bacteria, and or foreign substance that causes an immune response. This is going to make your body react. For example, the virus that causes the VID is SARS-CoV-2. So that virus is an antigen. That's going to cause our body to have an immune response. Our immune system is going to respond to it. It's going to try and do what it's supposed to do naturally, and that is an immune response, okay? Now the antibodies. Those are proteins that help fight off infection of foreign invaders and destroy the antigen. So there would be like a lock and key mechanism with the antigen to the antibody, okay? So what we want, our bodies want antibodies to be able to fight off any type of antigens or foreign invaders. That's most important when we're talking about infections. So if the body has never seen an antigen before, doesn't recognize it, it needs to build up the antibodies or immunity for it to get a greater defense response moving forward. So if your body is attacked by the VID, and this is a unseen foreign invader to the body. There are antibodies in the body that will attack the antigen. However, because the body has not seen this and doesn't recognize this foreign invader, it's going to take the body some time to go ahead and build up those antibodies to be able to fight off that antigen, that foreign invader, that substance, that virus, the infection. So that's how the immune system works. So you want to get specific into the type of different antibodies that are recognized in testing. So IgG is a let's see, IgG is an antibody testing type of test that will let one know if you were ever infected, meaning that now from exposure to the antigen in the body is building up antibodies. So IgG will let you know if you've ever been infected. However, IgM, which is the first antibody formed in response to infection, which can be tested by PCR polymerase chain reaction, will tell you if you have a current or active infection. So IgG will let you know if you've ever been infected. IgM will let you know if you have an acute or active infection. This relates to the testing that's going on now as far as COVID testing, okay? So let me go ahead and highlight this area for you guys. Let me see if I can. So we have IgG and we have IgM, or IgG versus IgM. So this is the difference in the type of testing that you will see out there for the VID. Excuse me, if you notice I'm saying the VID because I don't want my page to be flagged. I don't want CDC to be adding all their type of, information because you mentioned it. So we're going to go ahead and break this down like a pound, and we're going to use some different vernacular. We're calling it the VID. Let me see if I can move this. Let's see if I can move this around for you guys. Give me a second, because I don't know if I'm in the way of you guys seeing what I have on the slide. Hopefully not. However, vitamin D. We learn in school, in our science books in Western medicine, that vitamin D is a vitamin. A shout out to Muhammad Ali, I believe it is, or it's Ali Muhammad. Excuse me if I'm saying your name wrong. He posted something not too long ago about these topics, and he also is a scientist, and he is of the Aboriginal Medical, I think, association or group, if I'm not mistaken. And he's mentioned these topics, so I'm just going to take off where he left off or add a little bit more of my insight to it. So vitamin D, yes, we are taught that it is a vitamin. However, it is a hormone. Okay, this, and like the brother said, this can be found in information, especially European journals. I found as well too. I have the resource, a different resource, but I know that it's a hormone. The brother also knows that it's a hormone. So you can call it a vitamin as you want, but it operates differently. It's a hormone, right? So the source of vitamin D is the sun. The sun is a source of energy and it provides electrons, right? It's the ability for melanated people to be able to store energy as well. So melanated people absorb sun differently and better, receiving vitamin D better than any other people on the planet. Why? Because our melanin has a strong correlation and connection to the sun. Okay, so depleters of vitamin D. Sunscreen, we'll talk about that. Dairy and lack of sunlight, referring to the seasonal affective disorder, and meat. Getting back to the first depleter, sunscreen. Let's go ahead and highlight this right here. Sunscreen. You may hear controversial advice or information regarding black people and sunscreen. I've always told my family that you do not need sunscreen. And they say, well, black people burn. Black people can burn. I have burned before when I was much younger. But it's not the fact that your body is being overexposed to the sun as a melanated person. It's the fact that it's the toxicity or the acidity that is being protruded through your large organ, your skin, that's having a reaction, because that is what's burning. That is what's having a reaction in your body. It's not the actual sun exposure to your skin. It's what it's reacting with that's having the burning sensation, okay? So I tell black people all the time, no, you do not need sunscreen. You do not want to block your exposure to vitamin D, because in certain geographical areas, there's not a lot of sun. In this time of the winter, it gets darker faster, so there's not a lot of sunlight. So that goes into the seasonal affective disorder, which a lot of people say they have issues with. I know me for certain, when it gets dark early or when it gets this time of the year, I hate it. It's not bright. There's not a lot of sun exposure. You just feel a difference. And it's not because you have something that's truly wrong with you. It's because you are being affected by a lack of sunlight, a lack of sun exposure. Dairy and meat, they do inhibit the production of vitamin D. You know, I am not one for telling people or informing people that they should eat any type of animal products. So those are depleters of vitamin D, and vitamin D deficiency is linked to the susceptibility of infection. So the lower your amount of vitamin D is, the higher your susceptibility, or higher you're prone to an infection. So think about that in the realms of an immune system. If I have low vitamin D, or is there a correlation to me personally? I'm getting sick more. I have a lot more infections. I'm dealing with a lot more elements. Question yourself and think about that, okay? Let's move on. Okay, so continuum of vitamin D. Like I said, the body absorbs vitamin D from absorption via the skin, which is our largest organ. So, how do we transform vitamin D from the sun? Class, I'm glad you asked this question. Let's get into some biochemistry. There's a previtamin. The previtamin is called D3. Okay? You have the scientific name there, but we don't have to go into that. Cholecalciferol, D3, formed from cholesterol via the sun. Via the sun meaning those ultraviolet B rays, those UVB rays. And then that product is converted in the liver and the kidneys to form vitamin D. Okay? So we have the precursor of the previtamin, which is D3, cholecalciferol, formed from cholesterol via the sun. So the sun exposure, the UVB rays, are then going to convert that previtamin, that D3, via the liver and kidneys to form vitamin D. Stick with me. Are you guys here with me? Okay? The picture that you're seeing on your screen is the synthetic version of vitamin D. This is how it's sold in the stores. We've also talked about this before. You have your synthetic version of vitamins to your actual vitamins that you'll get from plant-based options of foods, okay? So you want to make sure that you're getting your vitamins from your plant-based sources, okay, as much as you can. Getting vitamin D, first of all, is very subtle in plant-based foods. The best source for vitamin D is going to be the sun. Okay, so let's get back to the synthetic version of this. This picture is what you will see that's sold in stores as a supplement. Not the same as the vitamin D you're going to get from sun exposure. Not the same from the pathway that I just told you, which takes vitamin D3 to form or produce vitamin D. That's totally different. Totally different. So you do not want to get the synthetic version of vitamin D, which is D3. Because we've talked about synthetic versus natural. We talked about the bioavailability and what your body can actually use. Okay, so there's less bioavailability in synthetic versions of vitamins in contrast to the actual vitamin D that you will get from the sun and the vitamin D that you will get from the foods, okay? I know that previously, years ago, my doctor, my physician, my primary, asked me, I had my blood test panel and it came back that I was vitamin D. This actually might have been 2 years ago when I did my physical. Or it was a year ago. Sometime soon. It's close, right? Within the let's say. 1 to 2 years, I believe. Anyways, I digress. So the blood panel came back and said that I was vitamin D deficient. Well, I mean, I figured that I would be vitamin D deficient. This was around the winter time, and spring was coming upon us. So she asked me, did I want a vitamin D supplement prescription? I was like, no. Well, hell no. So that's what you tell your doctor when they ask you, do you want a vitamin D supplement? Hell no, I don't want no vitamin D supplement. I told her that I'll just go get some sun. The sun will be turning back around. We'll be fully exposed to it come springtime. So I'll just get some sun. I'm not taking no vitamin D supplement. I have done that before, years ago, like I said, when I was younger and less informed. So no, hell no. You do not want to take D3 sodas and synthetic version of vitamin D, okay? So we don't want this. We don't want that, okay? Let's move on. Again, continue with vitamin D. Vitamin D receptors, they are located on the lungs, the brain, the muscle, also in the GI tract, to name a few places. And when smooth muscle of the lung is compromised, that can equate to lung disease. Okay? So, what is a well-known lung disease, class? I'm going to ask you right there, if you can tell me. What is a well-known lung disease? And before you answer, I'm talking about bodily organs for the sake of telling you where the receptors are and where smooth muscle is located and how it's going to affect us when we talk more about the VID. But getting back to the question, young man, what is a well-known lung disease? Correct. Pneumonia. Pneumonia is also known as water on the lungs or inflammation of the lungs and causes difficulty breathing, which we've talked about before is one of the main symptoms of the VID. When they say you'll have difficulty breathing, you'll have problems with the respiratory system, a breakdown of the respiratory system. This is the exact same thing that happens when we speak about pneumonia. And I told you guys in my 5G technology class, chemistry class, when I was talking about 5G, and I touched a little bit on the VID. The VID has a symptom for difficulty breathing. Yes, that is a symptom. Correct. However, back in 2002, it was 2002 or 2003, we first started seeing the case of SARS that took place, the outbreak in China again. It was Wuhan was the SARS-CoV-2, but I don't remember the actual location for 2002 with the SARS. They actually called it atypical pneumonia. So when I say pneumonia, I'm not grasping for something out of thin air. I'm specifically talking about the classifications. I'm talking about the symptoms and how they relate or are very similar to pneumonia. So if I refer to the VID as pneumonia, I'm not doing that to be funny. I'm doing that because it scientifically can be proven, okay? So the immune system during the VID. So let's look at a few of our behaviors, especially that the brother Ali Muhammad pointed out. So the behaviors are social distancing guidelines. So we're wearing masks are mandatory in certain states and mandatory in business establishments, right? So we're seeing everyone walking around with a mask. You see people walking around with masks when there's no one on the street with them. You see people going outside wearing masks. You see people riding the car by themselves wearing masks. You see them wearing it. Even though it's not a guideline or mandatory in their state, they walk outside and they're wearing masks. And then you walk into businesses or whatever you're doing during the day and you're wearing a mask too. On top of that, you're not going outside as much, so you are getting less vitamin D exposure or sun exposure. Then we're into the colder during the colder months where there is we get dark early and we have less sun. And then this is why people refer to, oh, this is the flu season, which you haven't heard in God knows how long. Who's heard the flu? Raise your hand if you've heard anyone say it's flu season or a big emphasis on flu shots. No. You all what you hear about constantly, and I don't watch a lot, I don't watch TV. I damn sure don't watch a lot of TV. But what you will hear on the news on the internet, what you read about it, what you will hear on the TV, I know from people telling me this, and sometimes I catch it when I'm over other people's houses. All you hear about is the VID. That's all you hear about. That's constantly what you're programmed for, and you're so in fear monger that you want to go out, you want to get this vaccine and have no idea about it, right? So I digress. So during these colder months, less sun exposure, you'll see people getting sick more. Well, why? Less sun exposure equals less vitamin D, and less vitamin D means you can be susceptible to infections, okay? So mask wearing equals a decrease in oxygen. I've talked to my friends and family about this. I may have covered this in a chemistry class, but not to the detail of which I'm about to discuss it. Because there is a lot of information that will, especially from the medical side, medical textbooks, even doctors, they will give you a perspective of information from what they know. All they know is Western medical system, the Western medical system. They are not aware of what took place prior to the development of the Western medical system. So all they can tell you is, or give you a perspective of, is from what they know in the textbook. And they swear that that's the Holy Grail. But I will tell you that I've studied those books as well, but also have an indigenous view or natural view of science. So mask wearing is going to equal a decrease in oxygen, O2, oxygen consumption, oxygen intake, and you're going to increase the recirculation of carbon dioxide. Well, we've learned as children that you want to breathe in oxygen and breathe out CO2, but we're going to have CO2 recirculating. So we're going to have a difference, especially a difference and an increase in carbon dioxide recirculation than we naturally would because we're wearing masks. So there's a difference right there with mask wearing. And the immune system needs oxygen because the lack of it can suppress the immune system. So we've talked about vitamin D, we've talked about oxygen, recirculation of carbon dioxide, how all that affects the immune system. So, class, make sure you're taking these notes, okay? So all of these are ingredients for a disaster. All of these are ingredients for a weakened immune system, okay? And the lower the lymphocytes being the white blood cells, these are the white of the immune system, the white blood cells. You guys have heard of red blood cells. If you haven't heard of white blood cells, they are for the immune system. They lower antibodies to fight off infection. They lower antibodies. The lower the lymphocytes equal the lower amount of antibodies to fight off infections. So people with immune system deficiencies or autoimmune deficiencies such as like lupus, MS, HIV, tuberculosis, they will have a positive correlation for reinfections of the lungs, for instances like pneumonia. I keep referring back to pneumonia because I want y'all to understand there is a great correlation and scientific similarity to the VID to pneumonia. So much so that I told you back in 2002, SARS, not the SARS-CoV-2, but in the SARS family of respiratory disease, was classified as atypical pneumonia, okay? So the lower the lymphocytes, the lower the white blood cells of the immune system is going to equate to lower antibodies that are available to fight off infection. So white blood cells are so important to the immune system. And when you have immune system deficiencies or autoimmune deficiencies is when your immune system attacks itself, there's a positive correlation to the reinfection of the lungs, such as pneumonia. There are other things, but I want to focus on pneumonia. So immune system health. What can we do to help the immune system? Well, I'm glad you asked. Immune boosting methods. Let's talk about vitamin C. You want to make sure you're getting an intake or consuming vitamin C in the form of citrus fruits like oranges and limes. You have other vitamin C sources such as mango, papaya. We also have other sources such as cantaloupe. We have elderberry, antioxidants, berries, kale, beans. We also have other sources such as thyme and nettle. Nettle is also referred to as stinging nettle. So if you see stinging nettle, same thing as nettle, okay? These will be some immune boosting methods. So vitamin C, citrus fruits, oranges, limes. Other vitamin C fruits, mango, papaya. Now we have other immune system boosting methods, which is cantaloupe, elderberry, antioxidants. Antioxidants are going to help fight off those free radicals, which are those electrons bouncing around, unpaired electrons bouncing around that can cause havoc and damage inside of our body. So we want to make sure that we have great levels of antioxidants. You can get those from berries, kale, and beans. Your strawberries, your raspberries, your blackberries, your blueberries, thyme, nettle, and or stinging nettle. Vitamin D sources. Sunlight. I can't stress this enough. Sunlight. So it's been stated that 30 minutes of whole body sun exposure is approximate to 20,000 international units of vitamin D. I'll say that again. 30 minutes of whole body sun exposure, which is basically like if you had on you're naked, or if you had on a swimsuit, is approximate to 20,000 international units of vitamin D. And the recommended daily allowance is 600 international units of vitamin D for ages 1 through 70, and 800 international units of vitamin D for those older than 70. So, if you went outside for 30 minutes of whole body sun exposure, which in this, depending on where you are, geographic area, in North America, especially being in the United States, if you're on the northeast section of the map of the United States, where I am located, you know that in this area it gets pretty cold, and there's sun exposure in the AM during the day for the most part, but that can vary, and it gets dark early, probably around 5 o'clock, 5:30. So if you're at work, or a lot of people, well, some people are working, some people are going into the office, some people are doing what they gotta do. But if you're at home and you can go outside and you can get some sun exposure, I tell you, go ahead and make sure that you do that. You're possibly going to need more than 30 minutes because of whole body sun exposure you're not going to get unless you're going outside in the wintertime, but naked or with the swimsuit on, which I doubt. So maybe a little bit over 30 minutes. And remember the recommended daily allowance is 600 international units. But so yeah, go outside and get some good old vitamin D if you can. If you go out in the wintertime, you're going to be bundled up. So the exposure, I doubt is going to be in the range of 20,000 international units, but possibly in the range of the recommended daily allowance, okay? And vitamin D sources are mushrooms, wild salmon. Now you know your girls are vegan, but I go ahead and I put that out there. Excuse me, for those that follow me who aren't vegan. So something for everyone. Excuse me. And remember I said that you get subtle vitamin D received from food sources. The best source is going to be the sun. Okay? So less mask wearing whenever possible. Go outside, go for walks, get you some fresh air, walk your dog, walk your goat, whatever animal you got, your horse, your pony, whatever it is you got, go ahead outside and take it for a walk, take it for a spin. Vitamin D sources, make sure you are getting sun. Also, it will not hurt you to go ahead and make sure you're getting some plant-based vitamin D as much as you can. If you are a pescatarian, if you do eat foods such as salmon, go ahead and check that off your to-do list or to-get list. And we want to make sure we're getting immune boosting methods. We talked about vitamin C. We talked about elderberry. We talked about antioxidants. Your berries, your kale, your beans. We talked about thyme. Thyme is a really good source of vitamin C. So make sure that you have that on hand. And nettle. Nettle is a herb that you can use as a seasoning as well. Go ahead and get you some nettle. So this has been chemistry class. This has been biochemistry class. So next week we will study again. We're going to do a series part 2. We're going to refocus on vitamin D. We're also going to include vitamin B5. We're going to include acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter, in relation to the immune system and the VID. So shout out to the brother that did cover this topic. Like I said, I believe his name. Let me make sure I got it right, because I don't want to be wrong when I'm saying his name. Give me a second. Yes, it's Dr. Ali Muhammad. So Dr. Ali Muhammad did touch and focus on these points, and I'm just picking up the ball where he left off and rolling with it, and adding my insight and perspective. So see your ass back in biochemistry class next week. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for coming. See you next week. Peace.